Sorry about
Pittsburgh Steeler fans, you are tuning in to Know Your Enemy. Just in the nick of time, Geoffrey Benedict joins us here live. Of course, my name is Michael Beck, your deputy editor behind thesteelcurtain.com, and we have a special, very special guest this week, Joe Valerio, former Kansas City Chief himself. Joe, how you doing tonight, sir? And excuse me if I butchered your last name.
Oh, no worries, Michael. Great to be on. Geoffrey, nice to see you. Thanks for having me on. Look, I'm just down the road here in Philadelphia from Pittsburgh, and as I was telling Michael before we started recording, Pittsburgh was always my AFC team next to my hometown Eagles. So a special place in my heart for Pittsburgh. My wife's family is originally from Coriopolis. My wife's grandparents met on the roller coaster at Kennywood. Very romantic at a school picnic. So I love Pittsburgh. We used to go out there. I used to work out there all the time for work and just, get my Primanti's brothers, my Jenny Lee Bakery, which I know is not around anymore, but a lot of big places in the heart for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that is awesome. Now, for the game itself here, obviously the Steelers, it really came down to the last second of the NFL season for them to qualify for the playoffs. A little bit different for the Chiefs. Can you just let us know how the season's kind of gone as a whole for Kansas City and how they kind of sit right now entering this wild card weekend?
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody knows if you follow the AFC, and a lot of people follow the Chiefs because of their recent success and they like the sort of the star quality of their offense, especially. But they had a rough start. I mean, it was rough there for the beginning, and I think a lot of it was, if you look back and reflect on the season, and covering them on the Believe in Chiefs podcast, it's like, if for me it was all about the defense. It was the defensive struggles, that were forcing Patrick Mahomes to make decisions that I don't think he was used to having to make. Trying to keep himself on the field, forcing plays, really taking the weight of the entire Midwest onto his shoulders and carrying the franchise. And I think that hurt him, and I think it hurt the organization early on. I think once the defense found its stride, which I think Coach Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, knew he would, in getting the right pieces in place. They moved a few things around this year. Obviously, drafting Nick Bolton, had some work to do in the linebacking core. Moving Chris Jones to more interior play and moving him from the outside pass rush, picking up, some guys in the middle to shore up the defensive line. It just, bringing in Jalen Reid. It was a rough transition for the defense, and I think that ripple effect of it took the offense out of its game. And I think once they found their stride, you probably saw, if you follow them at all, and they did get a lot of national airtime. I mean, the Chiefs were lucky this year. I mean, just because of the Super Bowl runs that they've been on, I think they got a lot of national presence. So people have watched them play. And you saw that last 7-8 games, it was like this crescendo. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the defense found its way, and that put Patrick Mahomes back in a better place. So, that's kind of like my look back, quick, 2-minute look back on the season and where they are. I still think it's a team that has a lot of improvement. Even though, you talk about the last 3 years and the Super Bowl run and the Super Bowl win and everything, there's a lot of improvement I think this team still has ahead of it. And if they continue to wait for Patrick Mahomes to win games, I think that's going to come back and bite them in the future.
Now, the Chiefs against Pittsburgh had a fantastic game. But after that game, they lost to the Bengals and then struggled with the Denver Broncos before finally winning that game. Is that a return of kind of not playing well? Were they having some kind of little struggles there? Or do you think that was more that they had clinched everything and kind of didn't have anything to play for?
Well, Geoffrey, I think, as an ex-player, like, the last thing you ever want to do is admit that you take the foot off the gas pedal, and as a professional athlete. And I think, it happens sometimes. And I don't know if it was that. I think they came out of that Steelers game. I think they're looking at the rest of the season. Everybody's worried about COVID protocols. Everybody's worried about who's going to be playing, who's healthy, who do we rest, when do we rest them. And, right now that number 1 seed is extremely coveted. So I would hope that it wasn't the players and the coaches taking their foot off the gas. I think a lot of it had to do with, believe it or not, I think a lot of it has to do with their inability to really commit to the run game. They say they're going to, you get a sense that they're going to, but it always comes down to depending on Patrick Mahomes hitting Kelsey at the right time, hitting Tyreek Hill at the right time. And I was, as a lineman, of course, I would like to see them commit more to the run game and make teams stop them in the run, because when you do that, it, to me, it opens up your whole playbook, right? Like if you can get a Clyde Edwards-Helaire or a Darrell Williams, or even Gore now is really coming into his own. He's a very patient runner. And then you can get the jet sweeps in with Tyreek and Pringle and Hardman. Like if you can work that run game in, it just to me it just gives you more options, and they're not committing to the run. They just always want to rely on Patrick to make a big play. And it's a little bit frustrating as a fan who's followed them all this time over the last several years, especially to see them not get into a rhythm with the running game, because I think that could, because that's what they didn't do against the Bengals. They didn't do it against the Broncos, and I just keep hoping they're going to learn from these wins and losses, and they don't seem to be.
Now, I guess the kind of big elephant in the room for this game is that the Steelers are overwhelming underdogs in this one. Kansas City is, I think at this point, is favored by 13.5 points to win this game. And of course, in Week 16, the Chiefs did a number on the Steelers in Arrowhead Stadium, which again will play host to this game. In a way, does this make the Steelers more dangerous because they're able to play with just so loose because there's no expectation of them to win this game? Does the lack of pressure mean a team can play better and make them more of a threat?
Of course it does, Michael. Absolutely. Look, number one, this is a Mike Tomlin coach team. And I have the utmost respect for that guy, right? You don't go 15 seasons and not have a losing season if you don't know what you're doing. And because you what's the old joke, right? What's NFL stand for? Not for long. You're seeing that right now, right? Fangio's out, the Giants coach is out. Like people are just, they're bailing on these coaches after 2-3 seasons. Some coaches don't even make it a full season, as we saw down in Jacksonville. But like the when you're playing in a situation that's almost a no-lose situation for the Steelers, right? When you think about it, you mentioned it earlier. This is a team that came down to literally the last second of the season, right? That late night Broncos Chargers or Raiders Chargers game that I quite frankly couldn't even stay up for, even though it was super exciting. And I followed the AFC West. I was late. I was tired. I was like, I fell asleep. I woke up. They were winning. I was like, and I think when you have that kind of momentum going on your side, only good things can happen. And if they're going to take all the pressure on themselves, Ben's going to be playing his heart out. Could be right. Could be his last game, and I just think they've got the Steelers have a lot going for them right now, and I think it's two really well coached teams, and it's going to come down to, I think, some real intangibles. I do not like that line. I think that line is almost bogus because it's the playoffs, and I remember in 1993 season. We were around the same kind of an underdog playing the Houston Oilers down in Houston with Joe Montana in his first season in Kansas City. And we went down there and we handed it to him. And because we had nothing to lose, it was Joe Montana's, we had just come off beating the Steelers in overtime the week before at Arrowhead on a literally a fourth down, last second touchdown that Joe Montana threw. And watching Bill Cowher's dejected face. It was like, because I love Bill, because Bill was my coach in Kansas City, and he was there when I was there, and then he goes as Marty's mentor or mentee, and he goes to Pittsburgh, and so going back, long answer to a short question, like that. These playoff lines are, to me, they're almost immaterial. It's the playoffs. Like these teams have championship DNA. Ben Roethlisberger has championship DNA. Mike Tomlin has championship DNA. So I think that line is almost to a degree bogus because, the Steelers are struggling a little bit in the run game. They've dropped in the stats there. They're not super highly ranked. They're actually last, right, in the run game on defense. But man, they're stout up front. So if the Chiefs if they take a moment's pause here, it could come back and bite them if they think they're going to throw their helmet out there and win this game.
You brought up Coach Tomlin. Obviously, Kansas City has Andy Reid. Pittsburgh has Ben Roethlisberger. Kansas City has Patrick Mahomes. But I want to ask you about a different matchup, and that is on the defensive side, where Pittsburgh has T.J. Watt, who's obviously having a phenomenal season, but Kansas City has their own game-wrecking guy up front in Jones. Tell us what you expect to see from him.
Well, Chris Jones is a different kind of pass rusher, and that's why they moved him inside. They felt like he could be a little bit more effective. He's tall, he's big. He doesn't have, while he has a fantastic motor, don't get me wrong, he does not have a TJ Watt type motor, right? TJ Watt, he harkens back to, if you can think back to some of the Vikings teams in the 90s, like John Randall or a Chris Dolman, right? Pitt guy, right? Chris Dolman, that's more of that motor. Derek Thomas, right, has more of that TJ Watt. Chris Jones is more of a methodical pass rusher. He's big, he's tall. He's more, I want to say, not that TJ Watt doesn't have great technique, but he definitely relies more on his technique and his size than he does his motor. And I think that's why they're a little bit different. I think that's why they wanted to move Chris inside, if they could be, if they could be more effective. Now, the complementary, with Jarran Reed, that's sort of the complementary piece to the puzzle that I think the Chiefs finally got right, and that's why their defense went from the basement to the penthouse pretty fast when Steve Spagnuolo finally figured out that sort of magic formula of when he could work those two and when he could bring pressure onto quarterbacks with those two in the game. So I think they're different. And TJ Watt, if I'm Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs, I'm going to run the ball until somebody stops me, because I think that's how you negate the incredible pass rush of the Steelers. Now, granted, they're stout in the middle too, but I think you try to run the ball to get those guys on their heels a little bit so they can't pin their ears back, maybe even run it right at TJ. And that's what teams used to do to Derek Thomas. Like, if you go back to, probably one of the premier pass rushers of the 90s, right? Teams would run right at him because you definitely didn't want to run away from him because he's either tracking it down or he's getting a sack if you pass. So, that's what I think the Chiefs should do if they're going to try to negate it, because of his motor and his ability to rush the passer. And especially when TJ, if he rushes off of the Chiefs' right side, his left, and he forces Patrick to the left, because that's where Pat is definitely less effective. He's definitely less effective when he sheds the pocket and moves a little bit to his left. He's just not as comfortable as he is when he goes right. So he definitely doesn't want to run into TJ. He's going to try to run away from him, and that's what the Steelers are going to want him to do.
So the last time these two teams met, of course, just a couple weeks ago, both injury and COVID was kind of running rampant on either roster. For this week's game, do you anticipate any kind of different names being out, or what the health kind of looks like for the Chiefs entering this matchup?
Yeah, they seem to be, knock on wood, everybody seems to be pretty healthy. Both dealing with any COVID protocols that there might be out there, or just straight up good old fashioned physical injury. Right now they got these, you got these two kind of schools of injury. You got the COVID stuff, and then you've got the old school, old fashioned injuries. I think the Chiefs are going to be pretty full strength. They're lucky. They got that extra day, which was good, right? Coming off a Saturday game and then playing on the Sunday night matchup, which is kind of nice. So they got that extra day. Andy Reid's always good with an extra day. You give Andy Reid and his coaching staff time, they're gonna use it. These coaches are probably working 20 hours a day at this point because it's one or done, right? And they can't afford to make a mistake. And I think that's what will be a little bit of an edge for the Chiefs is having that extra day and really having this team pretty much at full strength, other than a couple of dings on the offensive line. But they've got so much depth up there that they really haven't missed a beat, and that's probably on the offense, besides Patrick, Travis, and Tyreek Hill, the offensive line is probably their biggest bright spot right now.
Yeah, on that offensive line, one of the players we liked here heading into the draft was Creed Humphrey. he has had an absolutely phenomenal season. Can you tell us from an offensive lineman's perspective what he's been able to pull off as a rookie?
Yeah, I mean, and doing it as a left-handed center. I know people don't think that's that's what's one hand compared to the other. It makes difference, I mean, he's fit right in with the culture of the team. He's very humble. He's very happy to be where he's at, but he still carries himself with some swagger that you want a starter to have. So he really has a great combination of rookie attributes that you're looking for, right? He played it, fantastic, pedigree coming out of college. He's got that humility that a rookie needs to learn and to be a student of the game, but he also has a lot of confidence, which is what you want. So I think that's really, if you roll him all up in one, he has been, he's been, probably the brightest spot. I know the Orlando Brown was a huge trade. Your left tackle is the premier spot, but for me right now, the real strength is the three interior guys. I mean, they've had a little bit of a rotating door at right tackle, right? We started the season with Lucas Niang, who was a COVID holdover rookie, right? He sat out his rookie year. And then, so technically this was really his rookie year, if you think about it, even though he's not technically a rookie. But so he struggled a little bit early, and they replaced him with Mike Remmers, and then Mike Remmers got hurt. And now we have Andrew Wiley, who is a starter, by the way. He was a starter on the Super Bowl team at right guard. So, this team basically has 10 starters on its offensive line. If you look at the up and down their resumes, they're all starters. Even, like Nick Allegretti, who's a backup guard and center, has started a whole season. When you're trading away, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who went to the Jets, when you're trading away a guy like that, who's that productive, you're deep. And that's what Brett Veach was not going to let happen this year. The debacle that was the Super Bowl last year with that, horrific offensive line play. So, Geoffrey, that was another long answer to a short question, but I really like Creed Humphrey. I like the way that he's fit in. I think the strength of the team is inside. And obviously Orlando Brown is having a fantastic season, Pro Bowl season, but I think the real strength of the line is inside, and that starts with Creed Humphrey.
Now, the last time Steelers and Chiefs played one another, Travis Kelce was out, but it wasn't Tyreek Hill who really took all that production when he was not on the field, but it's Byron Pringle who really kind of killed the Steelers in that game. Yeah. Do you think that's more of a matchup thing where like a secondary type receiving target could go off in this game, or was that just kind of the circumstances of that Week 16 matchup?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, Michael, and a great observation. The one thing about this Chiefs team is somebody in the receiving core, and we'll lump Travis into that because, he can block, but let's just call him a big receiver, right? Somebody always seems to step up. Eric Bieniemy's playbook, for some reason, has he has a knack as a coach, and the way that he develops his playbook, it sets players up for success in the passing game, the way they use their speed and the way they stretch the field both horizontally and vertically. And I think that's what gives teams a lot of fits, is that while they have the speed to go deep, you don't see them go deep. And of course, Mahomes, you've seen it. He has the arm to go deep. But, they really win in the 8 to 14 yard range is where I see their success come in the passing game. And I think because of that, it allows receivers to shine no matter whether you're Kelce or Tyreek Hill. It gives even a secondary or tertiary receiver like a Hardman or a Pringle or even one of their other tight ends, Blake Bell, for example, it gives them a chance to be successful because you're not always relying on the deep ball. You're not always relying on the sort of the timing of a route, so to speak. What the Chiefs rely on is Patrick Mahomes taking that one extra second to let his players ad lib and do their thing. And I think that's why Pringle was really successful in that game against the Steelers.
Oh, I think your mic's off, Geoffrey.
Sorry. You brought up the Chiefs offensive system there a little bit. How much of the Chiefs offense is kind of the staple, like Andy Reid offense. We've seen all those years in Philadelphia and Kansas City. Are there any wrinkles, any changes that have really come about in that offense, or is it still kind of the same Andy Reid system?
Yeah, I think when he got together with Eric Bieniemy, I think they put a little bit more emphasis, believe it or not, on the passing game. I think when you go back and you watch those Philadelphia teams, they definitely gave Donovan McNabb a little bit more of a chance to succeed and open up the playbook by committing more to the run. I think as Andy has developed this playbook with Eric Bieniemy, it seems to me, looking at it and the observations I've made, is that they definitely rely on is probably the wrong term, but they're so dependent on the passing game, and it's actually a source of frustration. I was talking with an old All-Pro fullback, a friend of mine, Kimball Anders, who actually started with the Steelers back in the I think I want to say late '80s, early '90s, and then we ended up being teammates in Kansas City for all of my career, and then he went on to have even more success after I retired. But Kimball, look, he's a running back, and he's going to want teams to commit to the run. But we were chatting that's probably one of our frustrations, is that as ex-players, we're like, God, if you just commit to the run game, it'll give you so many more opportunities. And I think that's what Andy hasn't done. And the one big difference of the playbook in Kansas City is a little bit more reliance on the pass and a little bit more reliance on, this whole kind of like RPO type style stuff that has come out.
For this game as well, like we've seen the Steelers kind of offensive struggle in a number of situations this year, of course, but is there any spots along that Chiefs defense that the Steelers might be able to take advantage of, some matchups with the football when the Steelers are on offense?
Well, I think if they try to commit to the run early, I think that could be that's always been an issue for the Chiefs, right? Historically, I know they had a spike where it seemed like their rush defense was really peaking. But to me, it's still the scariest part because their linebacking core is still young and they're not real big. If you look at their linebackers, they're lean, they're fast, they're athletic. They're not like the Ray Lewis type linebackers that you saw, in the 2000s, right? Where teams would just stack this big stud in the middle and let them do their thing and fill holes and really hit running backs under the chin. And I think that's the one thing that the Chiefs don't have. They rely on their scheme and getting more people in the box, like bringing up a Tyrann Mathieu and having him as almost like the other linebacker. Because the Chiefs, for all intents and purposes, run what's called like a 4-2-5. It's a 4 down lineman, 2 linebacker, 5. It's nickel basically all the time, except Tyrann Mathieu's like he's kind of like a linebacker in a defensive back's body. So I think to me it's still the run game, and it's always been the intermediate passing game. The Chiefs very rarely get beat deep. You don't see them, giving up the big play. When you go into the stat line and you look at teams that have done really well against the Chiefs defense, their average yard per catch is like 7-8 yards. Like it's almost like an extended run game, because and then it becomes about time of possession, right? So you throw the ball on first down and you throw an 8-9 yard, and then it's 2nd and 1. Then you can do whatever you want. You can run it to get the first. You can take a shot at a deeper route, and then run it on 3rd down. Like that's the way the Chiefs get beat. They get beat when teams eat up the clock and keep Patrick Mahomes off the field.
For the Steelers on defense, what would you say the best way to attack the Kansas City Chiefs is to try and have success against them? What have teams had success doing? How can the Steelers slow down the Chiefs offense?
I think one thing is I call it a mush rush on defense. Like for me, I think when the defensive front rushes in a very methodical manner up the field and don't give picture picture a traditional pass rush, right? Where you got a TJ Watt coming around the edge, and you got your 2 defensive ends coming around the edge, and you got your defensive tackles trying to bull rush up the middle or make a move or do a stunt, and then maybe you're bringing some pressure off of the C gap, which would be like off tackle, right, with a safety, or you try to bring a linebacker up the middle. Patrick never has a problem with those kind of rush schemes. Because what he does is he finds, I call it the pocket within the pocket. So he has uncanny eyes, like an ability to just step up and get that one extra second that he needs. So the teams that have had success, and you look at what like the Buccaneers did, is they did what was like a mush rush. It wasn't like the defensive tackles and defensive ends were shadowing him or mirroring him, but they were slowly, methodically moving up the field and not allowing those little crevices and gaps for Patrick to step up into. And teams that have done that have given him a problem because he doesn't have the vision, right, to get that extra second. Because you watch most of Tyreek Hill and Travis, most of their receptions are based off of not just poor coverage, but on their ability to take that extra second to get into the open space and read the defense, right? And when you take that away from Patrick and he can't find that, that's when he struggles and he'll make some errant throws. So if I would try to teach my defensive linemen how to rush a little bit more methodically and not create too many gaps or crevices for him to step up into. And it's almost as if, I don't want to say shadowing him or just stalking him, but just don't overcommit your rush. And when teams that have done that have gotten in his face, Tom Brady's the same way. Tom doesn't like that rush right up the middle. And if you can rush that way, that's how the Eagles beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. When they won, they just didn't allow Tom Brady to have vision, and that's what I would do if I were the Steelers.
Now, earlier we did chat a little bit about how the Steelers are pretty big underdogs in this matchup. Say they are able to pull off this upset, and it would be pretty monumental. I know a lot of people around the league would definitely be surprised, even though it is the playoffs, like we did talk about. But what would you kind of think the backlash would be like within Kansas City? Would fans be wanting? Would they be calling for jobs, or what if the seemingly unthinkable happened in the fans realm? What would the backlash look like?
That's a great question, Michael. Because it's hard, right? I mean, I'm not trying to divert the question, but like I saw it today. I'm watching ESPN, and Jerry Jones is on there, and he's like Super Bowl or bust, right? And I have a feeling if that same thing happened to Dallas, I think Mike McCarthy's gone. I think you'll see a complete revamping of the Dallas Cowboys in some form or fashion if they don't win at least this first playoff game. Flipping it back to your question to the Chiefs, I don't know if there's that kind of a mentality from the Hunt family and the ownership and what they're building and how they're building this organization out. I think they're a patient fan base. I mean, of course, they want to see the Chiefs get back because they do have the same relative talent base that got them to a couple of Super Bowls. I don't think they'd be calling for heads. I know they'd be frustrated. But I think given the history of this season, people would probably take an objective view, look back on it and say, we had our struggles this year and we've got some holes to fill. And I'm not saying it's a rebuilding year if they don't win this first one, but it's definitely a reloading year for them.
Now, we are approaching that 30-minute mark. We always like to ask our special guests what they think the final score of the game will be. Do you have any predictions, Joe, of how this one will wrap up?
Well, it's definitely, I absolutely can tell you this. It is not going to be like that game in Week 16. I know that for a fact. That doesn't happen to guys with championship DNA like a Mike Tomlin and a Ben Roethlisberger. It's just not going to happen. It just doesn't happen twice in a season. I can almost guarantee that. Would the Chiefs fan base that I work for, would they like to see that? Absolutely. And I'll probably get some flack for that for not thinking that it's going to be that way. But I think you have to take an objective look at this. Even as a rabid Chiefs fan, this is going to be a battle. I think the Chiefs do win. Just to be honest, if I had to make a prediction, but I'm telling you, I'm not I think the Vegas line is ridiculous, and I think it's going to be a 7-point game. I think the Chiefs win 28-21, and just being honest, I think the Chiefs will be ahead most of the game. They've been really good at starting out fast. They're at home. If they get a quick start, I think the Chiefs will. Now, this is best case scenario. The Chiefs will methodically score, and it will be, like 21-14, maybe somewhere in the fourth quarter, and then the Steelers might score one, and then the Chiefs might just, run out the clock. And that's how I think you get to 28-21. However, look, it's the NFL. It's the playoffs. It's Mike Tomlin. It's Ben Roethlisberger. It's a great coaching staff versus a great coaching staff. So I could absolutely see a couple of balls bounce the wrong way. You have some special teams guffaws, which the Chiefs have had in the last 2 weeks, right? We had the holding call that almost cost them the Bengals game, really, if you think about it, right? The holding call on the kick return. You had the roughing the punter against the Broncos, which was a silly penalty. Same guy, of course. Harrison Butker's slipping all over the place, with his footing on a bad field. Like, both of those games could have come down to special teams. So you never know. And I think it's, it could be closer game than people think. I think that line is a little off.
Hey, and you know what? I think any Steeler fan wouldn't really even be upset if they lost by 7. I think that'd be a pretty decent experience for the younger players in this team that weren't even supposed to see the playoffs this year as it is. But Joe, before we say bye to you, is there anything you want to plug for the people?
Oh, no. Yeah. If anybody, ever gets a shot and you want to listen to our Believe in Chiefs podcast with my partner, Jeff Fedotin, it's on the Believe Podcast Network. I'm at Joe Valerio 73 on Twitter. I'm, and again, it's not all Chiefs all the time. We try to talk about offensive line play. We try to talk about the league as a whole, and we really just chop up football. And I just want to say, good luck to all the Steelers fans. Huge, like I said earlier, huge place in my heart for Pittsburgh. Right down I-76, and love the city, love the grit of this team, the way they hung in there, never gave up. I think this is a really good matchup for football and for football fans to see. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a lot of gravity, man. It's NFL royalty, and I hope that the Steelers fans build on this, and we see a Chiefs Steelers matchup for many years to come, because it's a fantastic organization and a great fan base. So best of luck to all the Steelers fans out there, and enjoy the game.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. I hope you also enjoy the game. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you, Geoffrey and Michael. Anytime.
Thank you. Our pleasure. Thanks again. So
you got it.
Geoffrey and I will now continue on here talking about the Steelers side of things, of course, as we say bye to Joe, of course. Geoffrey, the Steelers weren't supposed to make the playoffs. We're sitting here after that crazy Sunday, and a matter of fact, they're the 7th seed. They made it. Everything they needed to have happen did happen, and we're sitting here with the playoff game. Just talk me through what Sunday was like for you, and whether or not you even watched that Sunday night or being out there on that Eastern time zone.
I did watch the Sunday night game. I ended up turning it off. I was going to go to bed. I'm like, I can't. And I ended up staying up. I ended up following it online. It was crazy. Turned it back on. Watched the last kick. It was ridiculous. I had a commitment on Monday. I couldn't record my podcast. Normally it's recorded on Monday and it comes out on Tuesday, the cutting room floor. So I actually stayed up after that game, and I was like, you know what? I was like so pumped. I was like freaking out, and the house is quiet. I couldn't be too loud. Everyone's sleeping. So I ended up just doing my podcast that night. I was up till like 3:00 in the morning. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. But hey, that's the NFL sometimes.
Yeah, the NFL is as crazy a league as you're going to find in the world, especially a single elimination playoff, unlike any of the other major North American sports. So truly anything could happen. Now, like we talked about with Joe, the Steelers aren't supposed to win this game. They weren't even supposed to be here to begin with. Is there any shot they win this game, or is this Big Ben's swan song, and we should just enjoy it for what it is, an extra game here in 2021/22?
Well, Michael, what do you think like the mathematical odds that the Steelers win this game is?
Well,
it doesn't matter what the odds are.
You just Dwayne
That's
Johnson.
All I gotta say. I just went there, right? I just went there. Screw the odds. Shock the world. Go win this game. It's one game. Really, to me, we're not. The Steelers aren't playing with house money. They're playing with like Monopoly money that they've somehow convinced people is real money. Like this is like the level at which the Steelers do not belong in this playoffs, right? This is not a playoff team. This is a rebuilding team starting tons of rookies so they'll have experience next year and can improve, and we can see what we have so we can build an offensive line for the next quarterback. And we're in the playoffs. It's absurd. But so to me, really, my thought on the whole thing right there is all I want from this Steelers team is at the end of the game to say, okay, we left it all on the field, win or lose. Obviously, man, I want them to win. I'm going to be like freaking out during this game. For some reason, us not like the odds of us being there and how we're not supposed to be there has made me more excited for this game. And I'm going to be like so intense for this game. And I think part of it is afterwards, if we lose, I'm going to be like, all right, as long as I can sit there and say they left everything on the field, I'm going to be pumped after the game. I'll be like, great season. I want to see it. And to me, the other big thing is it's one more game with Ben Roethlisberger as our quarterback. And I was 25 when they drafted him, right? It was amazing. The whole storyline, everything, just one more game with Ben Roethlisberger is my story. And if we win this one, we get one more. And if they win that one, they get one more. So as many games as we can get out of this, love it. I hope we see it. But even if we don't, man, I just want to see these guys put everything out there, leave it all on the field, and give it their best shot.
Now, you dropping your rock impression got me absolutely roasting in the live chat here. This is from Amanda Stanier. Michael trying to do math when Geoffrey asked him what the odds are. Goodness gracious, Geoffrey Benedict. Yeah, my brain was starting to spin there like a hamster wheel. But anyway, this game, I didn't even flame you for coming in late. I was nice. I was nice. Just a nice guy. Anyway, getting into this game, I'm Canadian. What can I say? Ben Roethlisberger, of course, statistically, it's one of his worst seasons of his career. Like we can be adults about it. Like the stats don't lie, the numbers are there. It hasn't been great for Big Ben, and like it's been a fun ride. But is there any reason to believe he could dial the clocks back for one more game, or do we have to rely on like Najee Harris going off like he did against the Cleveland Browns, or TJ Watt having 4 sacks to win this game? Does it have to be someone else, or could Big Ben will this team to a game?
I don't think Ben Roethlisberger has that in him. His game against Cleveland was the lowest yards per attempt he had ever posted in his career. And we've seen some bad games from Ben Roethlisberger. We saw him in the playoffs when he was a rookie, 2004 against the Jets when he was just absolutely terrible. And the Steelers still won the game. There have been games where he's been bad. He has never had a lower yards per attempt. Even in 2019, when he was playing hurt and was terrible. That was the lowest yards per attempt of his career. It was a little better in Baltimore, but it wasn't good. I think partly we could see some of that being him stating that it was the end. This is one of my theories about him, is the minute he said, you know what, this is my last game at Heinz Field, right? And he goes out, and it wasn't good. It was one of the worst games of his career. Yeah. And then the Ravens is his last game. Not very good. I think that kind of, broke his routine, broke his mental preparation. He's kind of taken in the scene of the game. He's kind of enjoying the moment, trying to do that. And that's not his normal preparation, right? Like Ben Roethlisberger says, or like when Mike Tomlin said, when everyone else is upset and everyone gets tight, Ben Roethlisberger is the same guy, right? I love that line from him. He was always the same guy. Well, he wasn't for 2 games. I think what we could see here is he's cut loose. If he, like you saw, if you people saw his press conference, if you haven't, go watch it. It was phenomenal. He knows he's playing with house money. This is it. This is every game he plays right now is his last game, and he's already passed. He's already passed his time. He's accomplished what he wanted to do. He beat the Ravens. He beat the Browns. He put both of them down in below the Steelers in the standings. Reestablished dominance in the AFC North in his last season there. I mean, he swept the Browns and the Ravens in his last season when he was supposedly done. Like, that's phenomenal. So for me, I think this could be a bounce back game for him. I just don't know how good it can be. And to me, I'm going to lean with what Joe said. TJ Watt coming off of Patrick Mahomes' right, making him chase off to the left. When he was talking about rushing slowly and progressively, that's what the Steelers do. That's their containment rush. If they stay true to that, if you get Chris Wormley not, ad-libbing and staying in his lane where he's supposed to be, that's the recipe, right? TJ Watt couldn't do that with his cracked ribs the first time, but that's the recipe. And that's where I think it happens is if the Chiefs get away, don't run the ball, and they get into pass-happy Patrick Mahomes land, and TJ Watt is getting pressure and force him off to his left. That's when the Steelers can do something. That's when the defense can make some plays. Something can happen.
Yeah, that's really what it's going to take. Offensively, though, would you be disappointed if they didn't have any trick plays in the arsenal? I feel like the Steelers, if they're ever going to pull out all the stops, like, why not? I feel like if there's not something wacky that forces the Chiefs to play off, like a double pass or something like a staple of the Ben Roethlisberger era. There used to be like a handful of times per year they'd run trick plays from Ken Wisenhunt to Bruce Arians, etc. Todd Haley. It was a facet of every offense, even with Big Ben at the helm, running the trick play. There's typically about 4 per year, I'd say, and it hasn't really been a thing under Randy Fichtner and Matt Canada. I feel like the Steelers need to just kind of throw anything they can at the wall, and even if it means winning a greasy game, who cares? You won the game.
Well, I saw some comments saying people wanted the other punter, Williamson.
Corliss Waitman.
There we go. Thank you. I could not remember his name to save my life. They wanted him for the punter. Has everyone forgotten Percy Harvin, touchdown throwing punter? I think that could come into play. I think we could see that finally get thrown out. That's what I mean. Leave it all on the field. But you know what I want to see? I want to see them attack. Obviously, they couldn't do it against the Ravens. The Ravens have some of the best interior run defense in the NFL. They're really good at it. But what the Steelers did against the Browns, when they just ran straight up the middle on the Browns and really crushed the Browns with that. And the Browns honestly have a better run defense than the Chiefs.
Still going to worry about Chris Jones, though.
Yeah, but you attack him in the run game, man. That's what you do. You go after him. You double team him. Get him out of the lane and run off of it. I would like to see that. I'd rather run at Chris Jones than try and run around him. He's too athletic. So that would be my strategy. I want to see him run straight up the middle. I want to see him just go run at the Chiefs. I really wish Kevin Dotson was back. That's been heartbreaking this whole season. I love Kevin Dotson. That line started getting going and he was out. Can't get him back. But I want to see this team run that right up the middle at the Chiefs. And if they can establish that early, man, if you can establish that and you can get pressure with TJ Watt, you have a chance.
This is actually something interesting from Steelers Pittsburgh. He says Chase Claypool throwing a pass. Now, the Steelers kind of set this up to a degree. Chase Claypool, I believe he was just eclipsed at the end of the game by Najee Harris to be the leading rusher against the Baltimore Ravens. He took a number of carries around the edge. Chase Claypool, having known him, I know he throws the ball with his left hand. So if you see him streaking from right to left, taking a handoff, I wouldn't be surprised if you were to try to throw one down the field. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. So that's definitely an option, and one that I've kind of been waiting for, because I know he definitely does have a bit of an arm. And if you look at his high school highlight tape. I think he has a couple deep touchdown passes throwing across the field. So that is definitely one to look out for. And I think the Steelers really are going to throw absolutely everything at the wall to see what sticks. Because, like, why not? You're not supposed to be here. Like Geoffrey Benedict said, monopoly money, funny money, phony baloney. They're not supposed to be here. They're not. But they are here. And you know what? If this team can actually, like, go out there and win a football game, it'll be like a party in Pittsburgh. Kansas City might burn, but it would be an absolutely crazy game if the Steelers are able to pull this one off. And like it's been said a couple times this podcast, anything is possible in the NFL in the playoffs. It's any given Sunday. But Patrick Mahomes throws a couple interceptions. Say Minka Fitzpatrick just goes off, or they can't stop TJ Watt. Could the Steelers win? Absolutely. You have 2 defensive touchdowns. You're probably guaranteed to win a football game if that happens. Heck, Geoffrey's been predicting it all year long that Steelers defense is going to score a touchdown, and it's never happened. But who knows? It could happen this week. I'm sure Geoffrey might predict it when we get into our final scores, which, considering the time, it's probably a pretty good time to get into that. So Geoffrey Benedict, who is winning this super wild card weekend football game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium?
You know what? I'm going Steelers to win this. I'm going to go with the defensive touchdown. I think that has to happen. So I think I'm jinxing us there. But I'm going to go with 24-20.
I have said this to a couple people. This game is either going to be the Chiefs by 30 or the Steelers by 3. Like really, I feel like it goes one way or the other. And like, if it's a tight game, I feel like Kansas City starts to fold because it's like mentally like, we're supposed to kill these guys. These guys suck. And that messes with you as a competitor. Like, they're not supposed to be in this game. And like, I would pick the Chiefs if this was the regular season. And I did in that game. I picked the Chiefs to win a blowout. And that's exactly how the game played out. But it's the wild card weekend. The Steelers are playing with house money. You're damn right I'm picking the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this game. And they're going to win by 3 points, and it's going to be crazy, and people's faces are going to melt. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have a weird score. I feel like they miss an extra point but make a bunch of field goals. I think they're going to have 18 points on offense, and the Kansas City Chiefs will have 14. They'll win by 4. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers winning a damn game on Wild Card Sunday. Why the heck not? Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to win another low-scoring game. And they're going to move on to play the Tennessee Titans, who they've already beat this year, and go on this miracle run and just watch it happen. But before I'll step off my milk carton, Geoffrey Benedict, is there anything you want to plug for the people?
Yes. We have, Dave and I had a really good Vertex coming out. Our last, I want to bring this up. Our Vertex from the Browns game, TJ Watt wrecked the Browns game, was mentioned on national television today. It was referenced on, what was it? First Things First on NFL Network. That was a great time for me. Got some right out of that. Got to show my kids that their dad's article was referenced. They're like, Dad, I didn't even say your name. I'm like, well, of course they didn't say my name, but they referenced my article. And Dave. But our new Vertex is going to be phenomenal. It is about the Steelers' run game, and specifically is going into how the Steelers give up big runs, but don't lose. Like, one of my favorite stats this year is the Steelers gave up 200 plus rushing yards 3 times this season, and they were 2-0-1 in those games. They did not lose a game when they gave up 200 yards rushing. I don't know if that's a new strategy in the NFL or something, but it's the first time that's ever happened that a team has given up 200 yards 3 times in a season or more and didn't lose a game of them. Didn't lose one of those. This is the first time in NFL history. You cover why that is the case and how the Steelers can give up big rushes and also, still get stops. That's coming out tomorrow. So look for that one.
And as always, you know what? First and foremost, I have something different to plug as well. I guess a kind of a side personal project for those of you that don't already know. My other career as a British Columbia police officer has just kicked off, and I was tasked with. Thank you very much. I was tasked with documenting the experience at the Justice Institute of British Columbia over on Twitter. So if you have any interest in following along my journey through school here, you can do so by following that Twitter page at Michael Beck APD. We can go through that together, of course. But getting back to the Steelers side of things, of course, you want to click over to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. It should be your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. If you're listening on the podcast platform right now, you've heard that phrase from every single podcast, because that's truly what it is. The one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, from breaking news, those injury reports, top 10 lists, you name it, it's available on BTSC. So click over to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. And once again, if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, you're still only getting about a third of the story. Search anywhere you get your podcasts. Behind the Steel Curtain will pop up. If you can leave 5 stars, subscribe, hit that like button, what have you. Anything you can do to support our channel, we can bring more great content to each and every one of you. So thank you so much for your time this evening. The Pittsburgh Steelers and Kansas City Chiefs will rock Sunday Night Football. Hopefully, who knows, next week we could be talking about a matchup with the Titans. We could be talking about offseason strategy. It's going to be fun. So hang tight. It's never a dull moment in the world of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So for my co-host, Geoffrey Benedict, my name is Michael Beck. We will catch you guys soon.